A Biographical Synopsis of Rev. Obadiah Holmes. From the Baptist Encyclopedia by William Cathcart, 1881. Scanned and formatted by Jim Duvall of BaptistHistoryHomepage.com. Narrated by Berean Noble Press. Rev. Obadiah Holmes was born at Preston, Lancashire, England, about 1606, and came to this country, as is supposed, about 1639. His religious connections were with the Congregationalists. At first, in Salem, Massachusetts, from which he removed to Rehoboth, where for 11 years more he continued in the church of his early choice. He there became a Baptist, and united with the Baptist Church in Newport, Rhode Island. In the month of July, 1651, in company with Dr. John Clark and Mr. Crandall, he made a visit to William Witter, a Baptist, who resided at Lynn, Massachusetts, about 12 miles from Boston. The day after their arrival being the Sabbath, they arranged to have a religious service at the house of their host. In the midst of the discourse which Dr. Clark was preaching, 2 constables presented to him the following warrant: by virtue hereof, you are required to go to the house of William Witter, and to search from house to house for certain erroneous persons, being strangers, and them to apprehend, and in safe custody to keep, and tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock to bring before me. Robert Bridges. The 3 erroneous persons, being strangers, were at once arrested and carried, first to the alehouse or ordinary, and then forced to attend the meeting of the day. At the close of the meeting they were carried back to the ordinary. The next morning they were taken before Mr. Bridges, who made out their mitimus, and sent them to prison at Boston. Having remained a fortnight there, they were brought before the Court of Assistance for trial, which sentenced Dr. Clark to pay a fine of £20, Mr. Holmes £30, and Mr. Crandall £5, and in default of payment they were to be publicly whipped. Unknown to Mr. Clark, someone paid his fine, and Mr. Crandall was released on promise that he would appear at the next court. Mr. Holmes was kept in prison until September, when, his fine not having been paid, he was brought out and publicly whipped. Mr. Holmes says, "As the strokes fell upon me I had such a spiritual manifestation of God's presence as the like thereof I never had nor felt, nor can with fleshly tongue express, and the outward pain was so removed from me that indeed I am not able to declare it to you. It was so easy to me that I could well bear it, yea, and in a manner felt it not, although it was grievous, as the spectators said, the man striking with all his strength, yea, spitting in his hand 3 times, as many affirmed, with a 3-corded whip, giving me therewith 30 strokes." Such was the charity of New England Congregationalists of that day. Governor Joseph Jenks has left on record the following: Mr. Holmes was whipped 30 stripes, and in such an unmerciful manner that in many days, if not some weeks, he could take no rest, but as he lay upon his knees and elbows, not being able to suffer any part of his body to touch the bed whereon he lay. Mr. Holmes soon after removed to Newport. In 1652 he was ordained to preach the gospel, and took Dr. Clark's place as pastor of the Baptist Church in Newport. He died in 1682. He left 8 children, one of whom, Obadiah, was a judge in New Jersey.